Russia only understands strength. So we in Europe, we have to remain strong in our support for Ukraine so that Ukraine can win the war against Russia's aggression. That means we have to continue to supply arms, we have to continue to supply finances, and we have to continue to work with Ukraine also in their efforts to integrate into the European Union, also in their direction eventually towards NATO. But the war that Russia is waging in Ukraine is having a negative effect, of course, on the rest of the world, all of Europe, in terms of energy costs and prices to consumers and businesses. And right now, we are at the stage where every member state is doing everything in its power to support its businesses, to support its consumers. But what we need to do is to look at what we can do as a union. And the European Commission now has some proposals on what Europe could do to get the price of gas, the price of energy down, so that we don't only subsidize households to help them get through with high prices, but that we could get the prices themselves down. It's not an easy route. There are many questions still remaining, but I am convinced that in order to maintain our steely resolve to support Ukraine, we have to address in the best possible manner the issue of high energy costs, and that is the best chance is through supporting the Commission. Many questions remain, but I'm convinced we have to go in this direction.
Of course, the main ideas are on the table, and the Commission came up with this idea for a price cap, a dynamic price cap. But it seems that Germany is the biggest opponent. Would you say, Prime Minister, that Germany is actually the biggest problem for Europe right now?
The conversation is still in front of us, but I would say that right now we have to look beyond what we can do as individual member states. And the danger is such that some member states that say have a bigger budget or more leeway to borrow money can support their businesses and households more than some other member states. And so we start to get what we generally refer to as an uneven playing field. So European internal competition becomes a little crippled. And we have to shy away from this, and we have to find a way to overcome, how shall we say, maybe almost protectionist tendencies in times of crisis and work together. So I will do everything in my power in the conversation today and tomorrow to convince
that that's going to be the case, because even the Prime Minister of Hungary has also come up to say this is going to be a very long summit. He doesn't want to support the joint procurement of gas. It doesn't look good for a Prime Minister.
In times of crisis, there's always a challenge, and often in the beginning, not everyone is on the same page. From my side, I will do everything to convince and to argue why it's in everyone's self-interest actually to work together. Because also on the potential joint procurement of gas, while one can participate, one could not participate, but that would have a downward pressure on prices. It would be a very good thing. Similar that if a price cap on imported gas could be managed, and there are many questions how it could be managed, that would have a downward pressure on prices, and that's what we all need. Of course, the fundamental problem is that in Europe, for many, many years, we have had a false energy policy largely based upon the assumption that cheap Russian energy will be almost indefinite. And now we see it's not the case. So it's impossible in 1 year to change our entire energy makeup. We need infrastructure, we need more generational capacities, we have to work more on renewables, more on energy savings, on heating, that is insulation of buildings. That's all a process. That we are doing that, but that will take time. But what we could do more quickly is look at the way how a price cap could be introduced that would be effective, and also what we could do with joint purchases, because that could also be implemented quickly.
So Germany and Netherlands, just to clarify, are alone.
I think that the answer is to work together.
So back to the price cap, you were asking for a long time, but how will you make sure that this money is not just thrown into companies, it's taxpayers' money, and you will subsidize then maybe energy companies?
Well, right now, all governments are in effect, in one way or another, subsidizing their companies through national price caps or various other mechanisms. But what the Commission is proposing is a cap on imported gas, which does not cost taxpayer money, but it's through the collective clout of the European market as a buyer's market to influence prices coming into the Union. I think it's tough. And it's always difficult when you try to, intervene in markets. But I think this is the time where we have to explore all possibilities of doing that as a short-term solution so that we can get away from having to subsidize, which costs taxpayer money.
The Baltic states before the
Are less financially strong as Germany? How will that help the poorer countries?
How would what help?
How will it help the poorer countries within the EU?
Well, if we can get the cost of imported energy down, it helps the poor and the richer countries. It helps everyone. The best solution would be if we never would have had an energy policy which is so heavily dependent on Russian energy. That's wishful thinking. But looking where we are now, we cannot get away from gas in the short term. So we still have to continue, and we don't produce enough, so we have to continue importing it. And if we could get a price cap on the imported gas, even not a large reduction, but any reduction, it would have a positive effect on markets and help the rich and the poor alike.
But would it be enough? Don't you need more measures than just that?
We need to start somewhere. And right now we are at the stage where every member state is fending for itself, doing the best that it can. But that's not enough. And the next level is to see what we can do as a union. And the Commission has proposals. I think I have many questions actually on the details of these proposals, but at least they are common proposals, and I think we need to pursue them. I think as a council we need to task the Commission to continue work and to move as rapidly as possible and to see what else we can do. But there is no magical solution for this. We are energy import dependent, and that is a sad fact. So we also have to work structurally in this crisis to make more rapid plans in the future, how in the future we could become, as a continent, energy independent. It is possible, but that takes planning, and it will also take investment.
Finally, Prime Minister, would you say it's actually quite ironic that you were in a way criticizing how this European energy policy has been done in recent years? Germany was the biggest importer of Russian gas. Would you say it's ironic that Germany was the one supporting that policy, now is the one that needs the most help from European countries, and yet is saying no to a price cap?
I understand what you're trying to press. Look, policy in the past was made, and we argued against such policy, and were not very much listened to. And it doesn't help me to say that, oh, my country was right. Well, it doesn't help the situation. We have to look at where we are and how we can move forward. And I've seen time and again that going into a conversation, member states have one position, and during the process, those positions can change. Maybe the positions won't all gel today and tomorrow. Maybe it will take another few weeks. But I am convinced, similarly as with sanctions, when the war in Ukraine, 24 February, started, Latvia, together with my Baltic neighbors in Poland, we were for very hard sanctions very quickly. Many of our friends were hesitant. But over time, I think we are through sanction package number 8 now. Our friends have come around to seeing things much more as we saw 8 months ago. And maybe, I think in this case as well, it may take time. I'm willing to put in all the time that it takes, but I'm convinced that in the end we will all realize it's the only way out. The only way out is by working together.
Thank you.
Minister, one more question.
Russia attacked the capital of Ukraine again in recent days. What you should do more to neutralize these threats, nuclear threats coming from Moscow?
The support that Ukraine needs is very clearly anti-aircraft, these batteries, and these batteries are coming from those countries that have them. my country, Latvia, we have given everything from our arsenal, and we are looking for ways to do that more. We have no hesitation, and we are arguing with our friends who have maybe larger warehouses to look a little deeper into what they can do. And this is what we can do in the short term, is to get the needed weapons and defensive weapons to Ukraine. What Russia is doing is beyond words. It is beyond criminal. It's beyond reprehensible. I simply lack vocabulary for it. And we need to do everything to help Ukraine protect itself. And I think this is also a time where we have to start thinking seriously about a war crimes tribunal for Russia, because the crimes that are being perpetrated there are as horrific as anything that our continent has ever seen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Prime Minister, do you have a message to send to the opening of the COP27 taking place?
The message is simple. Russia understands strength. So in Europe, we need to stay strong and fully support Ukraine in its efforts to win the war against the Russian aggressor. And the economic effect that this war is having on Europe is very large. Right now, all member states are doing the best that they can to individually support their households and support their businesses. But clearly this is not enough. We need not only to subsidize, but we need to get prices down in Europe, energy prices down in Europe. The European Commission has come forth with a set of proposals to set price caps to work on common purchasing, and I think this is the route that we have to take. We cannot rely only on subsidies to deal with high prices. We have to do everything in our power to address the high prices and bring them down. And the Commission's proposals are the best that's on the table now. This is the direction we need to go.
Can we save the planet? And what can we do, what the leaders can do in the COP27 to save our planet?
What we need to do, of course, in terms of our energy independence is to move faster into renewables, faster away from fossil resilience. The war in Ukraine is teaching us the dangers, also the geopolitical dangers of being dependent upon fossil fuels. So we have to take the lessons and work towards the future. This is what we have to do.
Thank you very much.